first rescue mission of the year. We got an empty car trailer behind us. And actually, we're grabbing one item today and one item tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. But we've got roughly a 4.5 hour drive one way. So it's gonna be a lot of driving today and tomorrow. But it ought to be a great time, and I think you guys are gonna love what we're going after. So stay tuned. We got a nice drive ahead of us, and we'll see some good scenery. And then I'll reveal what it is once it's on the car trailer. Well, just pulled over for a minute to check everything and get some pictures. Gotta love the scenery along this stretch of road. It's pretty great. But everything's looking good. And we're gaining on some distance here. We're almost there. Looks like the temporary winch is hanging on good. Not the prettiest setup, but it works. The old Power Stroke is doing great. What a beautiful day. Perfect for rescuing something old. Even got some moose tracks right here by the truck. Always cool to see. So yeah, we'll hop back in and keep on going. Well, I'm all loaded up with item number one and currently on my way back home. What do you guys think it is? Check it out. So this is a 1943 Chevy M6 bomb handler. Now these are part of the G506 Chevy series. However, these trucks are a shorter wheelbase and they featured an open cab with a soft top and then this framework on the back to pick up and load and handle bombs on aircraft and ships during the war. Now GM only produced around 7,000 of these, and that makes these pretty dang rare. So I am definitely super excited to have this thing following me home. It's you know, fairly intact for what it is. It's missing some stuff, but I mean, there's definitely enough here to brag about. So really excited about it. Met a fellow collector who was super nice and friendly. We exchanged a bunch of knowledge and mutual contacts, so that's always a good time too. It's the stories and being able to save the history is what makes me love what I get to do as far as this stuff goes. So yeah, just a great time all the way around. And of course, when you got something like this on your trailer, you get looks and waves and thumbs up from everybody, and you stop somewhere like the gas station to fuel up, and yeah, everyone runs up and wants to talk to you. So it's really neat to see how this stuff really captivates people and makes them interested. So that's reassuring for future stuff goes. So just a great time. We'll take a better look once we get it home, but here's a quick little walk around of it. Looks good with the mountains behind it. So we'll get back on the road here and make the rest of the journey home, and then we'll get this thing off the trailer and take a better look at it. So check in with you guys once I'm closer to home. Had to stop and get pictures of her with another bomb loader. GMC CCKW here. The much bigger version of what we're bringing home. Super cool one. Good old gravel roads, I must be home. What a day. Roughly 10 hours of driving total, and we get to do it all again tomorrow. But it was a good trip. Nothing went wrong. Everything went nice and smooth, so that's always good. Can't complain there. And look what we brought home. I mean, would you just look at it? She's a gem. We'll take a closer look here in a bit, but we'll get into the yard here and get it unloaded and everything, plus all the stuff in the bed. But I love this truck. The good old Power Stroke did great. She's not the quickest going up hills with a load behind it, but I mean, you just lay into it and let her sing and she pulls. It's a good one. But, you know, other than the hills slowing me down a bit, she runs 65, 70 the whole time, so, you know, just a true workhorse indeed. So, yeah, we'll hop back in and get into the yard and get this thing unloaded. Well, it's the next morning. We're on our way to do it all over again, so another long drive ahead, but stay tuned until you see what we got next. Looks like we're gonna get into some rain today. Hopefully it quits the further we go down that way, but we'll see. It'll be an adventure nonetheless. Well, the rain's been holding off pretty decent, just light stuff here and there along the way. not too bad. Still looks pretty gray ahead, but should clear up the further we get. We'll see. Drive is going good. About typical, you know, permafrost roads. It's rough in spots, so yeah, the old truck definitely needs shocks, which I knew that, but you know, you're just gonna want to ignore that and not do anything and go buy more old stuff instead. We're rolling down into Caribou Creek now. This place is kind of a death trap in the wintertime just because of the inclines and the twist, but they sand this pretty heavily and salt it in the wintertime. But the sheep, all sheep, they come down and they'll lick the salt that's left over, which is super cool to see. And yesterday on our way back, there was a ram on the side of the road, about a half curl ram, and that was super cool to see. But usually you have to go up into the mountains to see them that close, so it's neat to see them by the road here when you're coming through. Quite the place. Are we ready for item number 2? There we go. Now we got a 1941 Chevrolet G506, and this truck used to be a fire truck up on Fort Greeley in Delta Junction right before Fairbanks, and then it came down here to the valley where we're coming from. And of course it's been through numerous stuff like all these trucks have, so it's not really true to a fire truck anymore other than the red paint showing. But this one's an absolute gem, solely because of the sheet metal. This is my first one with the straightest sheet metal that I've been able to find. Usually the fenders and running boards are all hammered and torched off and beat up on these things, and this one's fairly straight still. But she's had the Alaskan mods, like you know, this crude tow package and whatnot. Looks like we're oiling the highway a little bit. Guess the pavement won't rust now. Losing some gear oil. But this one's all complete as far as drivetrain stuff goes. Drive shafts, transfer case, transmission, all that good stuff. A little bit of rust, but that's typical for down here in the salt country. Has an old homemade winch bumper on it. This wouldn't have had a winch originally. Being a fire truck, it would have had the whole pump set up on the front. And since it's a 1941, it should have the serpentine style brush guard, which this is a different one off of another truck, I believe. Unless they didn't put them on the fire truck models, but I'll have to look into that. And she's had a motor upgrade. We got a newer GM inline 6 in here, so they fabricated some motor mounts and did all that good stuff to it. And it looks like it's even got a GMC 5-speed, so they upgraded the transmission as well. We'll have to check on that once we get it home, but just a quick look here. We got some mods going on, all that good stuff. It's missing the hood latches, so I strapped it and bungeed it down. The door flew open, so I had to bungee that. But I mean, she's pretty dang good. It's mostly got 920 tires on it, so we'll have to switch that back to 750s, see if this battery box breaks. Here we got the fire truck paint in here with the data tags. We'll have to look into those when we get it home. Suicide knob, all the good stuff. But yeah, still has fenders and running boards, which is the first for me. And the frame's in pretty good shape too. The old 7.3 is doing good. Now I do have a chip and tunes on this truck. However, I'm running it on stock because I don't have an EGT gauge, so I can't watch my temps. But even though I can watch the temperature gauge, the stock one of the truck, when I've got tunes on, and you can see it go up, so you can tell when things are getting a little spicy. But usually when I'm hauling with it, I just run it stock. I mean, it's got plenty of power as is. especially with the 3-inch downpipe now and the wicked wheel in the turbo. It does just fine. So we're doing good that way. She pulls nice and hard. And this truck's got 220,000 miles on it, and she's still on the original clutch, pulls just fine. But you know, being a Power Stroke, she's got the drippy drips going on, but I wouldn't even worry about that. Just keep an eye on the oil and send her. So there's that truck. We'll go ahead and make the rest of the way home, get it unloaded, and then we'll do a walk around of both trucks together. That way you guys get to see more of them. We'll go into more detail about them and all that good stuff. So yeah, we'll get back on the road and keep on keeping on. to gain that momentum. Back to the rain. Just had a car flash lights at me, so that's either a moose or a trooper. So looks like we got a cow and a calf here. There, we finally saw a moose. Two of them actually, along with a couple sheep. Well, it's the next day here. We're backed up to the shop so I can air up this one back tire that went down pretty quick. And then we'll go ahead and get this thing rolled off the trailer. Just a little trick that I do when I'm moving something around in the yard like this with the trailer. I pop my truck into low range. Even though I'm in two-wheel drive, low range just makes it easier for turning things around and working in tighter areas, and it's easier on your clutch too, so I always try to do that. Just something to mention there. But we'll go ahead and get this tire aired up and then take her over to the other one and unchain it and get it pulled off. Got that back tire aired up. We'll throw some in this low front one as well. But just wanted to mention, now these are not split rims, they are just a locking ring rim. And so they're two-piece, where split rims are like multiple piece, like 3, 4, and those are the more deadly ones. But even with these outside lock ring wheels, I like to go around and just inspect them. Make sure they're not super rusty and pitted and look dangerous, or if this ring is not seated right and it's actually, you know, raised up or something, like it's gonna blow off of there when you put air in it. So that's something I pay attention to. It's a little bit rusty, but we look okay, so we're good to put air in it. So yeah, just wanted to point that out. Well, here they are, both unloaded, paired up together, looking nice. Take a better look at everything here. So we'll kick it off with the 1943 Chevy M6 bomb handler. So these trucks kind of have several different model variations and names and whatnot. This one got nicknamed the M6 because it carried around the M5 bomb trailer. But the actual Chevrolet military model number for these is the G7128. And several of these Chevy trucks had, you know, model designations like that with the G and then 7 and then, you know, different number models. But that's what this one is. It is a shorter wheelbase and a shorter frame than the regular G506 trucks were, like the dump beds, the fixed beds, the fire trucks, all that stuff. So that makes them a little more unique in themselves. And then the production numbers on these were far lower, roughly 7,000 on these M6 trucks alone. Now, 7,000 probably seems pretty high thinking about it initially, But if you consider these things going through a war, how many of them got destroyed, left behind, and, you know, up here in Alaska, they just pushed, you know, dead trucks into swamps and low spots and used them for fill and left them behind in the woods, all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, as far as transporting, stuff got lost off of ships. When you take all that stuff into consideration, 7,000 gets cut down quite a bit. So I don't think there's an actual number or registration on how many of these are left today. So it's pretty exciting to have one here for sure. But I like that it's still pretty well original. You know, it's still got all of its olive drab and numbers on it, stuff like that. So that's super cool to see. I mean, it's pretty rough, but there's definitely enough here to start with and obviously know what it is. So that's super cool. And I was told this truck was stationed at Ladd Field up in Fairbanks, Alaska. And Ladd Field was first developed in 1938, and then the US government came in and started buying up homesteads, you know, outside of Fairbanks. And then all the massive production on the airfield began in 1941 and 1942. And that airfield played a huge part in the Aleutian campaign. Fighters and bombers were stationed there, and that was just the central hub for everything along Alaska's defense and the Aleutian campaign and all of that. So that the fact that this truck is from there and it was stationed there, you know, that's huge. So that's a lot of good history there. And you can see it's got Air Force paint on it as well. So it probably got changed up a few different times. But something cool about Ladd Field was the US military actually conducted cold weather testing on aircraft there for, you know, being up in the environment of Alaska. So, you know, just a lot of pioneering and a lot of firsts for the US military, especially being up here. And to have something connected to that history pretty directly is super exciting. Got numbers here and whatnot, more Air Force blue. Looks like it was over the olive drab. But yeah, and other cool things, obviously there's other M6 trucks out there, but something that makes this one unique is being up here in Alaska, it's got cold weather plug-ins, it's got a insulated and heated battery box, and it's just got all the Alaska features that was required for the cold weather. And it's got these tie downs so you could put a blanket over the hood and keep it warm. Just stuff that you don't see on the other M6s that are still around. And it appears that this is the original style 235 Babbitt bearing, which she looks pretty hurt. We're gonna have to swap another one into it, but that's no big deal. Those can still be found pretty easily. And these trucks never had an enclosed cab. They just had two seats, a frame behind them, a windshield frame, and then they had a soft top. So no regular rounded cab like the other trucks. And yeah, that makes them a little more unique as well. They have a smaller steering wheel just for getting in and out of quicker. And of course the hoist stuff is missing, but I mean the basics are here, and that's what counts. The guy actually gave me a seat frame. It's pretty rotted out, but it's enough to make a template of. So we'll have to start piecing this thing back together. So yeah, I mean, she's just an absolute gem. And I think this cutout would have been for, you know, some sort of heater mounted on the fender, a gasoline fueled heater of some sort. But, you know, obviously it's been hacked up a little bit over the years, but it's still pretty well got all the tags and gauges and all that. They're just busted. But all the extra work into the Alaska stuff here, the mount for the battery box, and then you got another plug-in here. Access to the fuel filter, battery box. The original one was there, and it got moved up to there. Fuel tank under the seat. I guess these fuel tanks are unique to these trucks, and they're super hard to find, so it's nice that this one is still in here. And you've got instructions for starting it. the heater. Here's the data tags. There's the year, 43, date of delivery, and then the serial number. Can't really make out that tag anymore, but it tells you all the basics that you need to know about it. Missing the transmission and transfer case as well. All the levers are here, luckily. I do have a transfer case out back. The casting is broken on it, but it can be repaired. And I know where I can find a original style 4-speed transmission with the lockout lever for reverse, so that's no big deal. And I'm sure I'll be able to find another floor pan at some point, the more of these trucks I come across. And yeah, the hoist is no longer attached. It's been taken off at one point, but it looks like it mounts to this bracket here. And then obviously it would have had a wooden bed. And yeah, I mean, it's still here. It's the right hoist for it. And the boom setup, it just needs to be attached again. And it's nice to see the running boards still intact and up over the rear wheels. We got a data tag on the boom frame here. Still has the pintle hitch. We got a plug-in for the trailer, all that good stuff. Still has the old blackout lights. Just super cool. Really like this thing. This would have been a toolbox on the side here, missing the lid, but it is still here and doesn't seem rusted out, so that's good. Now these trucks run a 750 by 20 tire, and we've got a oversize on the one front here. This is a 900 by 20. These were on the Korean War era GM trucks, the 6xs and stuff like that, like the M211s and whatnot. They went to a bigger size, but same bolt pattern, so they fit on these trucks. And my black 1941 Chevy boom truck has these wheels on it. So they look kind of oversized, but they do work. I think they do rub a little bit on the steering when you turn sharp, but they work. But we'll throw another 750/20 on here to make it look better, because, you know, she's just a little bit off right now. And then same with the 41. It's got 750s up front and 900s in the back, so we'll switch things all around. I'm glad to have some spare 900s now, though, for sure, because the ones on my boom truck are pretty cracked up, so I'm sure those aren't going to last much longer. And this one looks to be in good shape. So yeah, we'll have to dig into the history of this one more. We can still read the markings on it, and I'll have to check in with some experts that have records and whatnot and see what we can find out about it. These trucks never did have a front winch or anything, so it's a winchless model. We got the tab here for putting the hand crank in to the motor, so that's cool. And it's very uncommon to find these trucks up here with the original bumpers still on them, because they always got bent up like that, torched off, and then somebody put, you know, pipes, or they built their own bumpers like this one and just changed everything all up. So the fact that it's still intact in that way as well is super cool. But I mean, there's definitely enough here to piece back together. The side panels, especially Chevrolet ones, are really hard to find. The GMC CCKW side panels will fit on these. They're the same, they just have more louvers in them. And then the Chevy ones would have said Chevrolet on them, so that makes them desirable and harder to find. But the fact that it has this one is cool. It doesn't say Chevrolet on it, but you know, it's still something. And I see they torched it out for their, you know, heated battery box setup here. But just cool little features. Harder things to find aside from all the M6 unique stuff, like the hand crank and the hoist and all that setup, all the other little features. Radiators for these Chevys are super hard to find. They're unique to these trucks only. The GMC CCKW radiator is different, and it will not work in these, is what I'm told. I've never tried it, but yeah, trying to find a radiator for both of these is going to be tough. I'm sure we'll be able to retrofit something in. I know other guys have, so just something to look into. But yeah, we'll take a closer look at what's left here for the motor and whatnot. But we'll just keep going around stuff here for now. And taking a look underneath, like I mentioned, transfer case, transmission, all that's gone. I did get one drive shaft with it, so we do have one. And the unique thing that GM did with these military rigs, they centered the transfer case just right so that you could put the front drive shaft in the rear or the rear in the front. They're the same length, same everything. And that just made more sense for mass production. You know, you didn't have to produce two different length drive shafts. You could just make it one standard length and it would work in either or. So it's super cool to notice stuff like that. So where I have one, I can replicate it for the rear, and that's no big issue there. So yeah, just little details like that is cool to pay attention to. And then just how short, you know, the frame is on these. Okay, now moving on to the 1941 Chevy G506. Now, I was told this truck was originally a fire truck stationed at Fort Greely up in Delta Junction. Now that's like 100 or so miles away from Fairbanks. But, you know, another airfield, all that good stuff. And this one was stationed there. And like I mentioned earlier, not much really remains of the fire truck stuff other than the paint. And I was given a tag off of the fire truck body. So that would be cool to look into and decode a little bit. But I don't recall the Chevrolet model designation for the fire truck. They called them a crash truck, an airfield crash truck. So, you know, if an airplane went down landing or something, these trucks would have ran out and put out the fire and dealt with it. So I'll drop some pictures in as I'm talking here, but we can kind of get a good idea what these things would have looked like originally and whatnot. But these crash trucks, they didn't have a front winch. However, they had the extended out frame like a winch truck so that the pump apparatus could be driven off the front of the crankshaft of the motor for all the stuff on the back. So it looks to me that we've got the frame extension, and then over time, this truck being you know, Alaskified, as I like to say. Somebody has welded on their own homemade winch bumper, you know, all that good stuff. They had a winch mounted to this plate, and they just basically turned it into a hunting rig is what it looks like to me. But unique stuff to the crash trucks. Their brush guards featured another loop and another light. So that's something that can tell you. Now, I'm not sure, like I mentioned before, if the crash trucks, being a 41, usually they would have the serpentine style grill and brush guard where they loop up around right here and just continue to loop. And then in late 42, 43, and 44, they went to this style where it's just straight up and down bars. But I'm not sure if this is the original brush guard to this, you know, setup. So could be, may not be, we're not sure. Now, it's always common to see these reinforcements, especially up here in Alaska, because the fenders would get rattly and weak and they'd want to sag and fall down. So guys would just take flat strap and weld them to the already existing guard. And that's what's gone on here. But you can see it's been cut and it's a different color and like different material almost. But you know, that kind of indicates to me that this is a different brush guard, but I'm not sure. Hard to tell. But this thing's really good shape. It's hard to find these things up here with fenders and running boards still intact, and you know, just stuff like that. The axles and everything really clean and in good shape. You know, usually they're trashed and super leaky, but you know, of course they're going to be leaky 80 years later and stuff like that. Now, the crash trucks also would have had full-length running boards, kind of like the M6, but they would have gone all the way back up and over the rear wheels, and then you would have had your like fire truck body back here. So obviously, when all that got taken off, they torched it, which you can tell they torched it, and then just welded it. So they just turned it into regular running boards, which it looks like stock G506 running boards for like the dump trucks and whatnot, but obviously those are no longer there. that kind of hurts the value on that. But the fact that it has these alone is, you know, worth something. So we do have that going for us. And, you know, mixed up paint, the red for the fire truck, there's olive drab under it. And then back here, it looks like somebody camoed it up for hunting, is what it looks like to me. We've got mismatched doors, you know, different colors and stuff going on. This looks more like a military door. No, maybe not. Yeah, it is. Because over here, we have a civilian door, and the military doors didn't have the lock with the fancy little chrome flip down thing to cover it. So this is a civilian door off of a civilian truck. They're the same cab basically. The military stuff just had, you know, additional stuff like the fold out windshield and the data tags on the dash and stuff like that. Switches for blackout lights, all that unique stuff. But, you know, we've got the olive drab under here, so it's obviously original cab, plus it's got the data tags in it, so I know that much. Windshield frame is missing, unfortunately. Something that's valuable that everyone pulls out of these things when they're sitting in the woods, but just little stuff like that. Once again, this running board's been cut and whatnot, and I think, well, that one hasn't been cut because they left a space in them. The running boards continued over here, back and over, and they just left the gap there for the battery box is what they did. So this is an original uncut one. So that's good. Frame is super clean, not modified too heavily. Suspension appears to be in good shape. Only mods back here are for the tow package that's been very crudely done, like anything up here. Got this angle iron added in, and then this whole frame under here for the tow hitch. But I mean, not too bad. Looks nice and heavy duty. And unlike the M6, this truck is all complete underneath as far as drivetrain stuff goes. We got both drive shafts. We got the short shaft in between the transmission and the transfer case. We have the transfer case. And inside here is where we get into the modifications. So there's the fire truck red. We got the data tags over there. The one on the left has been ground on, so you can't really make out anything on it. But you can get the date off the other one and a little bit of the serial number, I believe. But missing quite a bit in here. We got the transfer case levers laying in here, which have been bent and repaired. Pretty typical stuff. And this is not an original style 4-speed. I thought it might have been a 5-speed that they swapped in here, but it's not. It's just a 4-speed. Because this one is a different shape, different casting, and it doesn't have the lockout lever for reverse. So somebody's swapped that in, and we'll work our way up, and I'll show you what's been swapped into this thing. But so that's not original, but you know, everything is hooked up. And missing the instrument cluster, missing the panel up there to cover the wipers, all that stuff. We do have a, you know, intact steering column and wheel and everything at least. And then, you know, it's been messed with quite a bit. But going on to the Alaska modifications with this one, somebody has hacked in a set of pedals, clutch pedal and a brake pedal, and very, you know, interestingly affixed it up in there. So that's comical. And then we've got an added in heater from, you know, like a 1950s car or something. We've got a fuse box from like, I don't know, that looks 70s. And wiring. And then up here, we've had a motor upgrade. This is not an original style 216, 235 Babbitt bearing inline 6. This is a GM inline 6, but which one is it? That's what we need to find out. So, GM, back in those days, you know, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s even, they loved their inline 6s, and they were great motors. Most all of them were, and they just ran forever. So, you know, there's a series of motors that this one could be. You've got the 230, you've got the 250, the 261, the 290, and the 292. And I believe there's even other ones, but I'm forgetting them right now. But there's little ways to tell the differences between those. And looking at this one initially, it looks like a 250, you know, maybe a 290, 292, stuff like that. But one good way to tell, and we'll hop up here. Looking at it just quickly, something unique about the 292s is they have offset motor mounts. So one will be further back and one will be further forward. So if you can see them both in the same shot here, we've got offset motor mounts. So this is a 292, and these are really good motors, so it doesn't surprise me that somebody swapped this in here. But obviously they hacked in some very crude motor mounts, bolted them to the top of the frame, you know, typical Alaska stuff. And you know, it looks pretty decent to me compared to what I've seen before. But yeah, she's been torn apart. I haven't checked to see if it's locked up or not yet. And going off of their pedal assembly job in there, we've got a modern setup. So like this looks, you know, 70s to me as well. Boosted brake, master cylinder that they cobbled in here and rigged up. Same with some modern wiring going on. So the 4-speed could very well have been paired up to this 292 originally. I'm not really up on the newer 4-speeds like I am the older stuff like these had, but I'm sure somebody can tell me down in the comments. But that's what we're working with, and that's the modifications this truck has had. And also something very common are winch marks in the hood, either from cable breaking and flying back and slapping the hood, or you know, guys would get crazy and just run the winch up and over the cab and do something. So the fact that there's winch marks in this hood does not surprise me one bit. Also missing a radiator like I mentioned, which, you know, just one of those things. But yeah, with their whole clutch and brake pedal assembly, they had some homemade Z-bar action going on here for the clutch, and it is really, you know, it's something to talk about. Like the way it's crooked and just not really working out right. It seems like they gave up on it, is what it seems like to me. It seems like they were working on this swap or whatever, and they just gave up on it, because everything they got going on here just doesn't look finished to me, rather than torn apart after being finished. But we got all that going on, pretty funny stuff. And then down here, I just totally love the like plain old car shock absorber welded to the tie rod and the axle with brackets, obviously. But I just love how they just, oh, we need a shimmy shock or steering stabilizer, and this is what we're gonna do. You know, that's pretty creative. And yeah, after the fire truck stuff got taken off, I'm not sure what they had mounted on here, probably a flatbed or something like that, but they, you know, cut up some tires to rubber mount it. So they were doing a good job in some sense. We've got a homemade overload bracket here. Would have looked like that originally, but we've got a, you know, homemade one. That's pretty cool. And like that truck, we've got 920s back here, and yeah, we got a couple good spares here. This one goes flat almost immediately, the one that we aired up over by the shop. Well, it's still holding pretty good, but a couple hours it'll be flat again. Oh, got a homemade one here too. Pretty funny. And something else I noticed, this truck being a 41, the early trucks, they did not have the brake band on the back of the transfer case. They actually, the handbrake inside went to a long linkage and rod that went back all the way to the rear drums. And my 41 and my 42 were set up that way. So either it's something unique about this certain crash truck model, or it's been swapped around, which I'm leaning more towards it's been swapped around, because that's what happened to these things. You know, people broke stuff, things failed, and a million parts got switched around. So this is probably a newer transfer case. After like 42, they started running the CCKW transfer case that had the brake band on it, because the CCKWs had dual outputs on their transfer case, and one drive shaft would have bolted right here. So I think Chevy just started using theirs to make production easier. But this one's got the later style, probably got switched around. Of course, I don't know if we can tell in the backing plates here. Of course, who knows if this is a later style rear axle or not that somebody put in. There's just no way of knowing. But surprisingly clean back here, which is shocking. We still have our, you know, lever action shocks, the old school style, and brake lines intact and all that stuff. So that's kind of surprising. But yeah, seems like later style to me, where it's a 41, so it's probably been updated a little bit by somebody. And what else here? Oh yeah, we got to look at their homemade cross member that got scabbed into the existing cross member for their little swap. It's pretty good. Take a look over here. Yeah, there you go. Just beef it up and you know, torch out the original one for your rear motor mounts, and you're good. But it is nice we are all complete under here. This is the harder stuff to find usually. They're always missing from people trying to keep other ones going. So yeah, that's a whole lot of rambling, but hopefully you guys found that interesting, going over each one of them. Definitely excited to have them here. I love this kind of stuff. I love all the old World War II trucks and equipment, but it's the Chevys that got me started. You know, I started with my 42 that I did a series on reviving it, and yeah, I'm pretty partial to the Chevys. So to have two more here, that's pretty exciting. And yeah, on the M6, I definitely want to work towards putting it back original, you know, fabricating the windshield frame and the seat frames and all that stuff that I'll probably never be able to find. And then all the little more common stuff, I can piece it back together pretty easily, I think. Like another motor, the transmission, the transfer case, all that will be pretty easy. So that's not going to be too bad. And I remembered I have a old photograph from 1943 of one of these on the Aleutians loading bombs, so I'll drop that in here. You guys can check it out. As for the 41, I'm not entirely sure what I want to do with it yet. I don't think I'll be able to find any of the crash truck stuff around very easily, so putting it back original to that is going to be pretty difficult. So not sure what I want to do with it yet. We've got all those modifications going on that are kind of going to make it difficult to sort out, like the pedals and the clutch and all that stuff being, you know, not right. It's going to take some sorting and figuring out. I have wanted to get one of these trucks and kind of turn into the traditional Alaska swamp buggy, you know, with the DC-3 aircraft tires and all that stuff, you know, just like a traditional hunting rig. So maybe this one will get turned into that, where it's already, you know, been camoed up a little bit. But we'll try and retain the history that it does have left as far as being a crash truck, so none of that would get hacked up any more than it already has been. But that's something I've been considering, especially with the homemade winch bumper. It just has that right look for going that route. But I don't know, for now, probably throw the correct wheels on them both, you know, start working on making them look a little better and clean them out, get them taken care of a bit, and go from there. I think this one obviously has a better chance of running first, unless I find a, you know, complete running motor for the M6 first. Not sure yet, but we will see if this 292 is locked up and go from there. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments as far as that little idea goes. I think it would be kind of cool to throw some DC3 tires on this and chain them up and create a good little traditional Alaska beast with it. I think that would look cool, especially with the tow hitch going on as well. But yeah, something else I forgot to mention, you guys probably noticed, both of these trucks are missing all of their rear axle shafts. Now, a big issue with the Chevys was the axle shafts were weak and they always sheared off. And it was usually inside, the splines would shear off, or they'd, you know, fail in the middle. Or like on my boom truck, it actually sheared the round shaft off of the flange on the outside, and they just welded it from the outside and attached it again. So these things are always missing rear axle shafts, no matter which one you find. And if you find one with rear axle shafts in it, you've basically struck gold, because they are super hard to find and they're just always broken. So yeah, it's not surprising to me that these trucks are missing them. You know, obviously they got parted out to keep other ones going, like most of this stuff did. But I've even heard tall tales of guys machining their own axle shafts for these things. That's how hard to find they are. So that's why my 42 G506 is running on front wheel drive only, because I don't have rear axle shafts for it. But you know, these things could do the same thing for the time being, just run them around on front wheel drive. Yeah, it's a little bit hard on them, but it does work. It's not like these things are hitting highway speed or nothing like that. So good little trick you can get by with. And also, along with the deal with the two Chevys, the guy was super nice enough to throw in these WC series Dodge parts as well. A couple steering columns and boxes, a 4-speed transmission with the handbrake, and one transfer case lever still attached. So that's super cool. Plus a seat from an open cab model, and he gave me the seat because it's something that looks relatively close to what would have been in the M6, so I can you know, try and use it as a template and rig it up in the M6. So that's super cool. And a really good hood for one. Still has the emblems and everything on it, so that's really cool. So yeah, we also got some WC series Dodge stuff as well. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the great big adventure going and rescuing these two trucks. And I'm sure it's getting to be a pretty lengthy video by now, but you know, I love this stuff, and it seems like a lot of you guys do too. So hopefully you were able to enjoy and get to see some good Alaska scenery and some good relics getting rescued. So yeah, I'm gonna dive into these things some more, do some more inspecting, learning about them, just have some fun doing that, and then eventually get them moved out back with the other trucks. So yeah, thanks for watching. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Merch store, link down in the description for that. Go grab some cool stuff and support the channel. But yeah, until the next great video, I will see you guys later.